The grand chamber floated in the void above Centauri Prime, a massive station where the most powerful beings in the galaxy gathered to make decisions. Inside the council hall, representatives from 40 different species sat in their designated seats, their voices echoing through the vast space as they debated the future of their worlds. Ambassador Chen stood at the human podium, her hands gripping the edges as she tried to make the council understand. She was tired. For 3 weeks she had been explaining the same thing over and over, but nobody seemed to listen anymore. The installations around Earth are defensive platforms, Chen said, her voice calm despite her frustration. They have been there for 300 years. We are simply updating their systems. There is no threat to the Council. Across the chamber, War Master Kravik of the Krath Dominion rose from his seat. He was massive, covered in dark scales with 4 arms that he spread wide in a gesture of alarm. The humans speak of defense, but our intelligence shows weapons. Powerful weapons. Weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Chen closed her eyes for a moment. Yes, they are weapons. Defensive weapons. We have always been transparent about our capabilities. Then why hide them in sleep mode for centuries? Another council member called out. Why wake them now? We are not hiding anything, Chen replied. The platforms are old. They need maintenance. Would you prefer we let them fall apart? But the chamber was not listening. The younger species, those who had joined the council in the last century, whispered among themselves. To them, humans were the quiet ones, the helpful ones. Humans ran the best hospitals in the galaxy. They built bridges and space stations. They mediated peace talks between angry species who refused to sit in the same room. The idea that humans could be dangerous seemed impossible to these younger races, but it was exactly that softness that made the Krath suspicious. Kravik had been pushing for this vote for months, and now he sensed victory. The council has been at peace for 3 centuries, he declared, his voice booming. We cannot allow any species to threaten that peace. I call for a vote. We must strike Earth before they strike us. Chen felt her heart sink. You are making a terrible mistake. That sounds like a threat, Ambassador, Kravik said with a sharp smile. It is not a threat, Chen said quietly. It is a warning. The vote was called. Chen watched as the lights appeared on the voting board. Green for opposition, red for support of military action. The red lights multiplied, spreading across the board like a disease. When the final count appeared, Chen stood in silence. The motion passed. The council had authorized a strike on Earth. Chen looked up at the council members, seeing the confidence on their faces. They truly believed they were doing the right thing. They truly believed humanity would surrender without a fight. I need to contact Earth immediately, Chen said. You will remain here, Kravik said. All human ambassadors are now in protective custody. For your own safety, of course. Chen sat down slowly, her mind racing. She had tried to warn them. She had done everything she could. Now, all she could do was wait and hope that the people of Earth remembered the lessons of the past. 5 days later, the Council Armada emerged from FTL Jump at the edge of the Sol system. 500 warships, the largest military force assembled in 200 years. Admiral Thex of the Krath commanded the fleet from his flagship, the Dominant Will. All ships battle formation. Thex ordered, advance on Earth's orbital platforms. The fleet moved forward like a wall of metal and energy. Thex studied the sensor readings. The human platforms were exactly where intelligence said they would be. Dozens of stations orbiting Earth, Mars, and the outer planets. They looked old, inactive. Send the surrender demand, Thex said. The message was broadcast on all frequencies. Attention, Earth, you have violated Council security protocols. Power down all military systems and prepare for inspection. You have 1 hour to comply. The response came quickly. A simple message in text form, negative. Leave our system immediately. Thex smiled. He had expected this. Humans always thought they could negotiate everything. All ships weapons free. Target the orbital platforms. Disable them. The Council fleet opened fire. Energy beams and missiles streaked through space toward the human platforms. Thex expected to see explosions, debris, the quick collapse of outdated defenses. Instead, the platforms lit up. Shields materialized around each station, shimmering barriers that absorbed the Council's weapons without even flickering. Then the platforms began to move, rotating and repositioning with impossible speed for structures so large. Sir, the platforms are activating weapon systems. his tactical officer reported, confusion in her voice. Then destroy them before they fire, Thex ordered, but the platforms were not firing. Not yet. Instead, something else was happening. Thex watched his sensors with growing alarm as hundreds of objects emerged from the platforms. Small, fast-moving, in perfect coordination. What are those? He demanded. Unknown, sir. They are too small to be ships. Too fast to be missiles. The objects swarmed toward the Council fleet. Thex ordered evasive maneuvers, but it was too late. The objects attached themselves to his ships, dozens to each vessel. Then his systems began to fail. Sir, we have lost weapons control.
Sir, engines are not responding.
Sir, multiple hull breaches, but they are sealed by unknown force fields. Across the fleet, every ship was reporting the same thing. They were being disabled systematically and quickly, but they were not being destroyed. No explosions, no deaths, just total system failure. Within 3 hours, 500 Council warships floated helpless in space. Thex sat in his command chair, stunned. His mighty fleet had been neutralized without firing a single effective shot. The humans had not even needed to destroy them. Then a transmission came through on the emergency channel. It was old, the audio crackling with age. A human voice is speaking in the common tongue. Attention Council forces. This is Admiral Park of the Earth Defense Force, transmitting from 300 years in your past. By Council Treaty 441A, Earth's defensive systems are being placed in permanent standby mode. We hope they never wake again. We hope you never forget why we built them. But if you are hearing this message, it means you did forget. It means someone attacked us. It means the platforms have awakened. The transmission paused, then continued. To whoever is listening now, know this. We won the last war. We chose peace instead. We gave you a chance to forget what we could do. That was our mercy. Do not mistake it for weakness. You have 48 hours to evacuate your crews to life pods. After that, we are coming to talk. And this time we will make sure you remember. The transmission ended. Thex sat in the darkness of his disabled ship and realized with cold certainty that he had just started a war with the wrong species. Somewhere in the Council's archives, buried and forgotten, was the truth about humanity. And now they were going to learn it again. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was chaos. Representatives shouted across the chamber, demanding answers, pointing fingers, trying to understand how their mighty fleet had been destroyed without a single shot landing on target. Except it had not been destroyed. That was the part that terrified them most. Chancellor Mora, the Centauran who led the council, stood at the central podium with her 3 eyes closed, trying to find calm in the storm. When she finally spoke, her voice cut through the noise like a blade. Silence. The chamber fell quiet. We need answers. Where are our records of the human conflict? Someone find them. Now. In the archives deep beneath the council station, archivist Telem received the order with trembling hands. He was young, only 40 cycles old, and had never dealt with a crisis of this magnitude. He entered the search parameters into the ancient database. Human, war, first contact. The results made him go. Cold.classified, restricted access, founding war records, clearance. Level Omega required. Telem had never even heard of clearance level. Omega. He contacted his supervisor, who contacted their supervisor, who finally contacted the Chancellor herself. Within an hour, the seals were broken and the files began to open. What they found inside changed everything. The first document was a contact report, dated 302 years prior. Telem read it aloud to the assembled council leadership, his voice shaking. First contact report. Exploration Fleet Gamma. We encountered an unknown species in System J449. They call themselves humans. They have established a colony on the 4th planet. Initial approach was met with curiosity. However, during cultural exchange, there was a misunderstanding. The humans perform a gesture where they extend their hand toward others. Our security team interpreted this as a threat display. Weapons were discharged. 7 humans were killed, including 2 juveniles. Mora felt sick. Continue. Telem scrolled through the files. The humans demanded we leave their space immediately. Fleet Commander Thrace refused. He claimed the system by council law. The humans. They gave us 72 hours to evacuate. We thought they were bluffing. What happened next? Kravik asked, though his voice had lost its usual strength. Telem opened a battle report. His face went pale. The humans attacked with 40 ships. Our fleet had 200. The battle lasted 11 minutes. We lost 160 vessels. The humans lost 3. The room went silent. That is impossible, someone whispered. But Telem kept reading. Report after report. Battle after battle. The war had lasted 3 months, and it had been a slaughter. Not because humans were more numerous or better armed, but because they fought in ways the Council had never imagined. Human ships could jump without using the FTL lanes that connected systems. They appeared anywhere, anytime. They used the gravity of planets and stars as weapons. They hid in asteroid fields and attacked from angles that should have been impossible. Their ships were built to take damage that would destroy any Council vessel, and they kept fighting even when they should have been dead in space. One report described a human destroyer that had been cut in half by enemy fire. The front section, still containing the bridge and weapons, had continued fighting for another 20 minutes before the crew evacuated. How did we survive? Mora asked quietly. Telem found the answer in a diplomatic file. The humans offered peace terms after 3 months. Our casualties were 87 million dead. Theirs were 40 million. But they were winning. We were going to lose. He pulled up the peace treaty. It was unlike anything the Council had ever signed. The humans had demanded almost nothing. They joined the Council as full members. They agreed to put their military into standby mode. They requested only one unusual thing. All records of the war were to be sealed, Telem read. Access restricted to the highest levels only. Reason given: to allow both sides to heal without the weight of historical hatred. To give future generations a chance to meet as friends rather than enemies. Kravik slammed his fist on the table. They tricked us. They made us forget so we would grow weak. No, Mora said softly. They made us forget so we would not fear them. So we could work together. She pulled up another file. It showed what humans had done in the 3 centuries since the war. They had built hospitals on 30 different worlds. They had developed new medical techniques that saved billions of lives. They had mediated peace treaties between species that had been fighting for generations. They had constructed the Centaura station, the very building the Council sat in now. They became what we needed, Mora said. Not conquerors. Not warriors, builders, healers, friends. And we attacked them, another Council member said. Before anyone could respond, a new transmission arrived from the Sol system. It was broadcast on open channel so everyone could see. Human medical ships were approaching the disabled Council fleet. Not warships. Hospital ships painted white with red crosses on their hulls. The Council leadership watched the live feeds as human doctors and engineers boarded Kravik's ships. They expected executions, torture, revenge. Instead, they watched humans repairing life support systems, treating wounded Council soldiers, bringing food and water. One camera showed a human medic working on a Krath pilot who had been injured when his fighter crashed into his own carrier during the battle. The medic was young, focused, his hands steady as he sealed the wound. "Why are you helping me?" the Krath pilot asked in confusion. "I tried to kill your people." The human did not look up from his work. "You were following orders, and you are hurt. That is all that matters right now." The pilot stared at the ceiling of the medical bay, tears forming in his eyes. "My grandfather fought in the war. The first war." He told me stories about human cruelty, about how they showed no mercy. Now the medic did look up. His expression was sad. "Your grandfather probably saw terrible things. War makes people do terrible things. But the war ended a long time ago. We chose to move forward. We chose to let you forget so you did not have to carry that weight." "We should have remembered," the pilot whispered. "Maybe," the human said, returning to his work. "But you are going to survive this injury, and you are going to go home, and maybe you will help others remember the right lessons." Back in the Council chamber, Mora watched the feeds with a heavy heart. She turned to her assembled leaders. "We have 48 hours before the humans arrive for negotiations. We need to decide what we are going to say to them. We should apologize," someone suggested. "We should beg for mercy," another said. Kravik stood slowly. The War Master looked older now, the weight of his mistake pressing down on him. "We should tell the truth. We should admit that we forgot, that we attacked without cause, that we were wrong." Mora nodded. "Agreed. But there is another problem." She pulled up intelligence reports from the Krath Dominion's home territories. Even now, even after seeing the defeat of the Council fleet, Kravik's government was calling for total war. They were rallying their vassal species, mobilizing their reserves. They refused to believe that humans could be so powerful. They claimed it was all tricks and deception. The Krath Dominion will not accept peace, Mora said, looking at Kravik. Your people are going to continue this war. Kravik closed his 4 eyes. Then my people are going to learn the same lesson we just learned. And I fear the cost will be much higher. In the Sol system, the human fleet began to gather. Ships emerged from bases on Mars, Luna, and the outer colonies. They were different from the old warships in the archives, sleeker, more advanced. 300 years of technology developed during peacetime, now being prepared for war once again. Ambassador Chen, still held in protective custody on Centaura Station, watched through the windows as more council ships arrived. She knew what was coming. She had studied the history her government had tried to hide. She had read the sealed files that described what humans had been, what they had done, and she knew that if the Krath forced this war to continue, the galaxy was going to see something it had not seen in 3 centuries. They were going to see what humans became when they had no choice but to fight. She just hoped that when it was over, there would still be a galaxy left to save. Admiral Thex floated in his command chair, watching through the viewport as a human medical ship docked with his crippled flagship. His crew was scared. They had expected death or imprisonment. Instead, they got doctors. The airlock opened with a hiss. Thex straightened in his chair, trying to maintain dignity even in defeat. A human woman entered, wearing a simple blue uniform with a medical insignia. She was small, older, with gray hair tied back from her face. She looked at Thex without fear. I am Dr. Sarah Chen, she said in perfect Krath dialect. I am here to make sure your crew survives. Why? Thex asked. The question came out harsher than he intended. Dr. Chen smiled sadly. Because you are people. Because your crews followed orders. Because we do not punish soldiers for the mistakes of their leaders. Over the next 2 days, human medical teams worked through every disabled ship in the Council fleet. They repaired life support systems, treated injuries, and made sure everyone had food and water. Thex watched it all happen, his understanding of humanity shifting with each passing hour. On the 3rd day, a transport arrived from Earth. It carried Chancellor Mora and the Council leadership, along with Ambassador Chen, who had finally been released from protective custody. The humans had invited them to Earth itself. Thex was included in the delegation. As the ranking military officer of the attack force, he expected to be put on trial. Instead, he was treated as a guest. The transport landed in Geneva, an old city on Earth's surface. Thex had studied human worlds before the attack. He knew Geneva was important to them, a place of history and diplomacy. But he was not prepared for what the humans showed them. They were taken to a building made of white stone with columns that reached toward the sky. Words were carved above the entrance in dozens of languages. In the common tongue, they read, Museum of the Founding War. May we never forget. May we always forgive. Inside, the museum was quiet and solemn. The first room contained wreckage from the war. Pieces of council ships and human vessels were displayed side by side, twisted metal that had once been instruments of death. Plaques explained each piece, telling the story of the battles they came from, but it was not a museum of victory. It was a museum of sorrow. The second room held holograms of the fallen. Faces appeared in the air, slowly rotating, showing soldiers from both sides, humans and Krath, Centaurans and Velen, all the species that had fought. Each face had a name, an age, a brief story. A human pilot who loved to paint, a Krath engineer who had 3 children, a Centauran medic who wrote poetry. Thex stopped in front of one hologram. It showed a young Krath warrior, barely old enough to serve. The plaque said he had died in the Battle of Proxima Station, the same battle where Thex's older brother had been killed on the human side. His name was Korath, a voice said beside him. Thex turned to see an elderly human man wearing the uniform of Earth's Defense Force. He was 19 years old. He died when his ship was destroyed in the opening minutes of the battle. We recovered his body from space. He is buried here on Earth in the memorial gardens outside. You buried our dead? Thex asked in shock. Of course, the old soldier said. They were young men and women who fought for what they believed was right. We honored them as warriors. Would you like to visit his grave? Thex could not speak. He simply nodded. But first they continued through the museum. The third room held records of the war's atrocities. This was not a sanitized history. The displays showed the worst of both sides. Council forces destroying human colonies, Human soldiers executing council prisoners, civilian casualties, war crimes, horrible decisions made in the heat of battle. One display showed footage from the massacre at Kepler Station, where panicked human defenders had killed 2,000 Krath prisoners when they thought rescue was impossible. The humans had not hidden this. They displayed it alongside their own losses, acknowledging the evil they had done. The fourth room was the largest. 2 walls faced each other, each covered floor to ceiling with names carved into black stone. One wall held 40 million names, human dead. The other wall held 87 million names, council dead. Chancellor Mora stood between the walls, her 3 eyes taking in the scope of the loss. "So many," she whispered. "Yes," a voice agreed. A woman approached wearing formal robes. She was the Secretary General of Earth, the highest political leader humanity had. "This is what we paid for peace. Both of us." She gestured for the delegation to follow her to a conference room attached to the museum. When everyone was seated, she began to speak. 300 years ago, we went to war. The council fired first, but that does not matter anymore. What matters is what happened after. We fought for 3 months. We were winning. Our military had developed tactics and technologies that gave us an advantage. We could have pressed that advantage. We could have conquered the council worlds. She paused, looking at each council member in turn. But then we looked at the casualty reports. We saw the numbers climbing every day. Human dead. Council dead. Children on both sides growing up without parents. Worlds devastated by warfare. And we asked ourselves a question. Is this what we want? Is this who we want to be? Secretary General Park pulled up a hologram. It showed the signing of the peace treaty 3 centuries ago. Young humans and council members sitting together choosing to end the violence. We decided that we would rather be builders than destroyers. We would rather be healers than killers. So we offered peace. We offered friendship. And we offered something else. She pulled up the treaty terms. We offered to let you forget. We sealed the record so your children would not grow up hating us. So our children would not grow up hating you. We wanted the next generation to meet us as helpers, as colleagues, as friends, not as the monsters who killed their grandparents. But we forgot too much, Mora said quietly. We forgot what you were capable of. We forgot why we should never attack you. No, Park said firmly. You forgot the violence, but you remembered the people. For 300 years, humans and council species have worked together. We have built things together, saved lives together. Your children played with our children. That was not fake. That was not manipulation. That was real. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the memorial gardens where thousands of graves lay in neat rows. The treaty had a clause that we hoped would never be needed. If the council ever attacked Earth again, our defensive systems would activate automatically, not to destroy you, but to stop you. And then we would show you the truth. We would bring you here to this museum and we would make you remember. Not to shame you, but to teach you. Kravik stood slowly. The Krath War Master looked old and tired. My government has declared that we will continue this war. They say you are manipulating the council with lies. They refuse to believe you could have defeated us. Park looked at him with sad eyes. Then they will learn. And I wish they would not have to. Because teaching through violence is the worst kind of education. Thek spoke up. What will you do? What we must, Park said. We will protect the council from the Krath Dominion. We will disable their fleets as we disabled yours. And if they will not listen, if they continue to attack civilians, we will stop them permanently. But we will try every other option first. She turned back to the council delegation. We are giving you a choice. You can join us in trying to find peace, or you can stand aside and let us handle this alone. But know this. We would rather have you as partners. We would rather face this together. Mora looked at her fellow council members. She saw fear on their faces, but also something else. Respect. Understanding, perhaps even hope. We will stand with you, Mora said. We attacked you. We started this new war. We will help you end it. Park smiled, and for the first time since the crisis began, it was a real smile. Then let us begin. Outside the museum, in the gardens where the dead rested under the Earth's sun, Thek stood before Korath's grave. The old human soldier who had shown him the way stood beside him in respectful silence. I am sorry, Thek said to the grave. I'm sorry we forgot. I am sorry we made the same mistake twice. The old soldier put a hand on Thek's shoulder. Then help us make sure there is not a third time. Thex looked up at the sky where the Krath fleets were gathering for war. He thought about all the young warriors who were about to learn the hardest lesson of all. "I will try," he promised. "I will try." The Krath Dominion broadcast their declaration of independence from the Galactic Council on every frequency, every channel, every communication network in known space. Supreme Leader Vorak stood before cameras in his war room, his scales gleaming with oil that marked him as a warrior of the highest rank. "The Council has become weak," Vorak declared, his voice filled with rage and contempt. "They bow to the humans, these soft creatures who pretend to be peaceful. But we have seen the truth. The humans are manipulators. They are liars. They use mercy as a weapon to make others weak." Behind him stood the ambassadors of 6 other species, all of them nodding in agreement. Together they announced the formation of the Supremacy Alliance, a military coalition dedicated to destroying humanity once and for all. "We will not be fooled by their tricks," Vorak continued. "We will show the galaxy what humans truly are. We will make them fight as they fought before, and when they show their true nature, everyone will see them as the monsters they hide." Within hours, the Krath began mobilizing their fleets, 2,000 warships, the full might of the Dominion and their allies. It was 4 times larger than the force that had attacked Earth. On Earth, Secretary General Park made a different kind of announcement. Instead of threats or declarations of war, she did something unexpected. She released everything, every file from the founding war, every battle report, every casualty list, every war crime, every atrocity committed by both sides. She uploaded it all to the public galactic network, where anyone could access it freely. The galaxy went silent as billions of beings watched the footage, read the reports, and learned the truth about what had happened 300 years ago. The reactions were mixed and complicated. Many were horrified by what humans had done. The footage of human soldiers executing prisoners was brutal and undeniable. The destruction of civilian stations, the use of weapons that violated every rule of civilized warfare, the cold efficiency with which human forces had dismantled Council fleets. But they also saw what the Council had done. The massacre of human colonies, the bombardment of civilian centers, the refusal to accept surrender terms. The violence on both sides was equal and terrible, and then they saw what came after. The peace treaty, the rebuilding. The humans working alongside Council species to heal the wounds of war. 300 years of cooperation and friendship. The younger species, those who had never known war, struggled to reconcile the violent past with the gentle present. On 1,000 worlds, debates erupted. Could humans be trusted? Should they be feared? Was their kindness real or calculated? The Krath Dominion used the confusion to push their narrative. "You see, their propaganda broadcasters shouted. They are killers. They always were. They only pretended to change. But there were cracks in the Supremacy Alliance from the start." The Velen species, small and cautious, watched the footage of human medical teams saving Krath soldiers after the failed attack on Earth. They saw humans treating their enemies with care and respect. It did not match the image Vorak was painting. In the Council chambers, now relocated to a secure station far from the conflict zone, the debate reached its peak. Should the Council fight alongside humanity? Or should they remain neutral and let humans handle the Krath themselves? Chancellor Mora stood before the assembled representatives, her 3 eyes tired from days without sleep. "We must make a choice. The humans have offered to help us, but they will not force us to accept. They are giving us the same choice they gave themselves 300 years ago. Do we choose violence or do we choose peace?" "Peace?" a representative shouted. "The Krath are mobilizing for war. There is no peace to be had. Then do we fight for it?" Mora asked. "Or do we stand aside and watch?" A small voice spoke up from the back of the chamber. Ambassador Tyran of the Velen people, a species barely a meter tall, stepped forward. Her people were weak in military terms, often overlooked in council debates. But now everyone listened. "My people have no great warships," Tyran said quietly. "We have no powerful weapons. For 200 years we have survived because the council protected us. And who built the defense platforms that keep our world safe? Who trained our security forces? Who responded when pirates attacked our trading vessels?" She looked around the chamber. "It was humans. Every time. They came when we called. They asked for nothing in return. And now, when they need us, should we abandon them?" The chamber fell silent. Tyran's words carried weight because they were true. Humans had helped everyone. They had asked for little and given much. The vote was called. It was close, but it passed. The Council would request human military assistance to defend against the Krath Supremacy Alliance, but the request came with conditions. Humans would act only in defense. They would protect Council worlds but not attack Krath territory unless absolutely necessary. The Council did not fully trust what humanity would become in war. Secretary General Park accepted the terms without complaint. We will do as you ask. We will protect your worlds. We will defend your people, and we will hope that the Krath choose peace before more blood is spilled. The human fleets deployed across Council space, taking up defensive positions around vulnerable worlds. The ships were different from the old warships in the historical footage. They were sleeker, more advanced, clearly built with 3 centuries of technological development behind them. On the bridge of the human flagship Remembrance, Admiral Jackson reviewed the fleet positions. She was old enough to have studied the founding war and military academy, young enough to have never expected to fight in a real war. She had spent her career running humanitarian missions and rescue operations. Now she was preparing for battle. Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the Krath fleet, her communications officer reported. They are broadcasting their attack vector. Jackson frowned. They are telling us where they are going to attack? Yes, ma'am. They are heading for the Velen homeworld. They say they will destroy it as a demonstration of human weakness. Jackson felt cold rage build in her chest. The Velen were peaceful, defenseless. Attacking them was not strategy. It was cruelty designed to draw humans into a vicious response. How long until they reach Velen space? Jackson asked. 4 hours, ma'am. Then we have 4 hours to get there first. She opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships jump to Velen immediately. Combat protocols active. But remember your training. Disable, do not destroy. Capture, do not kill. We are not what they think we are. We will prove it. The fleet jumped. On the Krath flagship Vengeance, Supreme Leader Vorak watched the sensors with satisfaction. The human fleet was moving to intercept, exactly as he predicted. Good. He wanted them angry. He wanted them desperate. He wanted them to make mistakes. When the humans arrive, focus all fire on their flagship, Vorak ordered. Kill their admiral. Make them feel loss. Then they will show their true nature. His tactical officer hesitated. Sir, our intelligence suggests human ships are much more advanced than their old designs. We should be cautious. Vorak laughed. Cautious? We outnumber them 4-1. They are soft creatures who have not fought a real war in 300 years. We will crush them. But as the Krath fleet dropped out of FTL near the Velen homeworld, Vorak's confidence began to crack. The human fleet was already there, positioned between the Krath and the planet. They had arrived first despite jumping later. And they were not positioned for attack. They were positioned for defense. All Krath vessels, Admiral Jackson broadcast on open channels. You are approaching a civilian world without authorization. Turn back now. This is your only warning. Vorak sneered. Open fire. All ships. Maximum weapons. 2,000 Krath ships unleashed everything they had. The space between the fleets lit up with energy weapons and missiles. It was the largest barrage of firepower in 3 centuries, and it hit nothing. The human ships flickered and vanished, disappearing from sensors. The Krath weapons streaked through empty space, some of them continuing toward the Velen planet below. Where did they go? Vorak shouted. His tactical officer stared at the sensors in confusion. I do not know, sir. They were there, and then they were not. Find them. The answer came a moment later when human ships materialized inside the Krath formation. They had jumped micro-distances, appearing in the gaps between Krath vessels. And they were not firing weapons. They were deploying drones. Thousands of small machines erupted from the human ships, swarming over the Krath fleet like insects. They attached to hulls, burrowed into systems, and began taking control. Within minutes, Krath ships started losing power, weapons, engines. Return fire, Vorak screamed, but his own ship was not responding. The drones had already reached the Vengeance. Admiral Jackson's face appeared on every screen in every Krath ship. Your vessels are being disabled. Your crews are safe. If you surrender now, no one else needs to get hurt. Please, choose peace. Vorak's response was to draw his personal sidearm and shoot the screen. Never. If I cannot control my ship, then neither will you. Override all safety systems. Detonate the reactor cores. We will take you with us. Jackson saw the Krath ships beginning to overload their reactors. They were going to self-destruct, trying to catch human ships in the explosions. All ships, emergency jump, Jackson ordered. Get clear. But even as the human fleet jumped away, Jackson saw something on her sensors. The Krath weapons that had missed their targets earlier, the ones continuing toward the Velen planet. There was not enough time to intercept them all. Redirect all available ships, Jackson ordered. We have to stop those missiles. But she knew the math did not work. Some would get through. Velen civilians were going to die. And when they did, the galaxy would blame humanity for not protecting them well enough. She watched the countdown timer tick toward 0, praying for a miracle. And then the miracle came. The missiles streaking toward the Velen homeworld never reached their target. They exploded in space, hundreds of kilometers from the planet's atmosphere. But they were not destroyed by human weapons. Council ships had arrived. Led by Admiral Thex himself, flying a repaired Krath vessel with a council flag painted on its hull, they intercepted the missiles at the last possible moment. Admiral Jackson, Thex's voice came through the communication system, slightly out of breath. We apologize for the delay. Traffic was terrible. On the bridge of the Remembrance, Jackson felt tears of relief in her eyes. Admiral Thex, I could kiss you right now. Please do not, Thex replied, and Jackson could hear the smile in his voice. My wife would be very confused. Behind Thex's ship came hundreds more. Council vessels from a dozen different species, all of them jumping in to defend the Velen homeworld. They had voted to help, and now they were proving it with their presence. Together, human and council forces created a defensive shield around Velen. And for the first time, Supreme Leader Vorak felt something he had not felt in decades. Fear. His fleet was scattered, disabled, and now facing not just humans but the combined forces of the galaxy. The self-destruct sequence he had ordered was cancelled by the drones still attached to his ships, preventing him from killing his own people out of spite. All Krath vessels. This is Admiral Thex, the former council officer broadcast on Krath military channels. I am ordering you to stand down. This war is over. You are a traitor, Vorak spat back. You fight alongside our enemies. No, Thex said calmly. I fight alongside our friends. There is a difference, and if you cannot see it, then you do not deserve to lead. Across the Krath fleet, ship captains faced a choice: follow their supreme leader into death and dishonor, or accept the mercy being offered. One by one, they chose to surrender. Within hours, the entire invasion force had laid down their arms, but Vorak was not finished. His personal guard remained loyal, and they controlled several stations in Krath territory. From his command center on Krath Prime, he issued a final desperate order. If we cannot win, then no one wins. Activate the planetary defense network. Turn it on our own cities. We will die as warriors, not as slaves to human mercy. The message was broadcast across all Krath worlds. Millions of Krath civilians watched in horror as their own military prepared to fire on them. Defense satellites turned their weapons toward population centers. Countdown timers appeared on every screen. Secretary General Park stood in Earth's command center, watching the situation unfold. Her military advisors were shouting recommendations, each one more aggressive than the last. We can destroy the defense network from orbit, one general said. We can launch a precision strike on Vorak's command center, another suggested. We can disable the satellites before they fire, a third offered. Park listened to all of them, then shook her head. No. We do not fire on Krath Prime. We do not attack their homeworld. But ma'am, civilians will die, her chief of staff protested. Then we save them another way, Park said firmly. She opened a channel to Admiral Jackson. Get me ground teams ready. We are going down to Krath Prime and we are stopping Vorak ourselves. Ma'am, that is suicide, Jackson replied. The planetary defenses will shoot down any ship that approaches. Then we do not come in ships, Park said. We come in the old way. Admiral Thex understood what Park meant before anyone else. Drop pods. Single-person insertion. Too small and too fast for the defense network to target. Exactly, Park confirmed. And Admiral Thex, I need Krath soldiers to volunteer for this mission. Your people need to save your people. Thex did not hesitate. I will lead the team myself. The drop pods launched from orbit 30 minutes later. 50 small capsules, each containing a single soldier. Half were human special forces. Half were Krath warriors who had surrendered but now fought for a new cause. They fell through the atmosphere like meteors, landing in the capital city of Krath Prime. The mission was simple but nearly impossible. Fight through Vorax guards, reach the command center, and shut down the defense network before it could fire. They had 6 minutes. Thex's pod crashed through the roof of a government building 2 blocks from Vorax command center. He emerged with his weapon ready, finding himself face to face with a young Krath soldier barely old enough to serve. Traitor, the young soldier said, raising his rifle. Thex did not raise his weapon. Your supreme leader is about to murder your family. I'm here to stop him. Are you going to shoot me or are you going to help? The young soldier hesitated, then lowered his rifle. My sister lives in the capital district. She has 2 children. Then come, Thex said. We save them together. They ran through the streets, joined by more Krath soldiers who made the same choice. By the time they reached the command center, Thex had 50 Krath fighters with him, all of them choosing their people over their leader. The human teams had a different objective. They were not going to the command center. They were going to the defense satellite's manual control stations, scattered throughout the city. If they could not stop Vorax's command, they would disable the weapons themselves. Lieutenant Chen, Dr. Sarah Chen's daughter and a special forces operator, reached her assigned control station with 2 minutes remaining. The door was sealed, but she had brought cutting equipment. The problem was it would take 3 minutes to cut through. I need ideas, Chen said into her radio. Anyone? Step aside, Lieutenant, a voice said behind her. She turned to see a Krath civilian, an older female carrying a large industrial tool. I am a construction worker. I can cut faster. Together they breached the door with 30 seconds to spare. Chen rushed to the controls and began the shutdown sequence. All around the city, human and Krath teams were doing the same thing. In the command center, Thex and his team fought through Vorax guards. They were outnumbered, but they had something Vorax forces did not. They had purpose. They were not fighting for pride or power. They were fighting for their families. Thex reached the command room with 10 seconds remaining. Vorax stood at the main console, his hand hovering over the final activation button. Do not, Thex said, his weapon aimed at his former leader. Vorax laughed. You cannot stop me. Even if you shoot me, the timer will complete. You are right, Thex said. Then he lowered his weapon. So I am not going to stop you. I am going to let you choose, Vorax frowned. Choose what? Choose what you will be remembered for, Thex said. You can press that button and become the monster who murdered his own people. Or you can step away and become the leader who made a mistake, but chose mercy at the end. Either way, the satellites will not fire. My teams have already disabled them. But the choice of who you are, that is yours. Vorax looked at his hand at the button at the timer counting down. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. 1 second. He stepped away from the console. The timer reached 0. Nothing happened. The satellites were already offline, disabled by the combined efforts of human and Krath teams working together. Vorax collapsed to his knees. I almost killed them. I almost killed my own people. Yes, Thex said, but you did not. And that matters. The war ended not with a grand battle, but with a choice. Across Krath space, the military stood down. Vorax was taken into custody, not by humans, but by his own people. The council oversaw the transition to a new government, one that represented all Krath, not just the warrior class. In the weeks that followed, human engineers worked alongside Krath workers to repair the damage from the brief war. The death toll was remarkably low, 40,000 military personnel on both sides, 0 civilian casualties. It was a miracle, and everyone knew it. On Earth, in the Museum of the Founding War, a new wing was opened. It was called the Mercy Wing, and it told the story of the Second War, the war that almost happened but did not. The war that ended with former enemies choosing to save each other. Admiral Thex stood at the opening ceremony, wearing both his Krath military decorations and a new medal from Earth. He looked at the exhibits showing Krath and human soldiers fighting side by side, and he felt something he had not felt in a long time. Hope. Secretary General Park gave the dedication speech, her words broadcast across the galaxy. 300 years ago, we fought a terrible war. We killed each other. We destroyed each other. And when it ended, we chose to forgive. We chose to forget the hatred and remember the humanity. She paused, looking at the assembled crowd of humans, Krath and council species all standing together. But we forgot too much. We forgot why we must always choose peace. We forgot the cost of violence. So the galaxy forced us to remember. The Krath attacked us. The council authorized it. And we had to decide who we would be. Park smiled. We chose to be better than we were. Not perfect, not saints, but better. We disabled your fleets without destroying them. We protected your civilians even when you attacked ours. We gave you every chance to choose peace, and in the end, enough of you chose it. She gestured to Thex, who stepped forward. This Krath warrior attacked Earth, he lost. But when given the choice between revenge and redemption, he chose redemption. He saved his own people from his own leader. That is the lesson. That is what we must remember. 50 years later, the galaxy had changed. The Galactic Council was reformed with true representation for all species. Humans served in many roles, including military advisors, teaching tactics based not on destruction but on restraint. On Krath Prime, a memorial stood in the Capitol Plaza. It was a simple statue showing a human soldier and a Krath warrior reaching out to each other. The inscription read, "To those who could have destroyed us but chose to save us instead." Young Krath students visited the memorial on school trips. They learned about Vorak's madness and Thex's courage. They learned about the humans who risked their lives to save Krath civilians. They learned that strength was not just about winning wars, but about preventing them. In a military academy on Mars, a Krath officer and a human officer stood together, teaching the next generation of soldiers. They were friends, partners, colleagues. The human officer's grandmother had fought in the founding war. The Krath officer's grandfather had led the attack on Earth that started the Second War. "Do you ever think about it?" the Krath officer asked during a break between classes. "About how close we came to destroying each other?" The human officer nodded. "Every day. My grandmother told me stories before she died. About the terrible things she saw, the terrible things she did. She said the hardest part of the war was not the fighting. It was choosing to stop." "My grandfather said the same thing," the Krath officer replied. "He said humans taught him that true strength is knowing when not to use your power." They watched their students training in the courtyard below. Young soldiers from a dozen different species, learning how to fight only as a last resort, learning how to protect without killing, learning how to win without destroying. "Do you think they will remember?" the human officer asked. "Do you think they will make better choices than we did?" The Krath officer smiled. "I think we will make sure they do. That is our job now, to remember, so they do not have to repeat." Far above the academy, in the orbital space where the first council fleet had been disabled 3 centuries ago, a new monument floated in the void. It was a simple beacon, broadcasting a message in all known languages. Here, 2 peoples nearly destroyed each other. Here they chose mercy instead. Here they proved that the galaxy's greatest weapon is not the ability to kill, but the courage to choose not to. May all who see this beacon remember. May all who pass this place choose peace. May all who face this decision be strong enough to be kind. The beacon would shine for 1,000 years, a light in the darkness, a reminder that humanity's greatest victory was not the war they won, but the peace they chose.